The ice truck killer. My sister vanished one cold winter night, and our world shattered. She was vibrant and full of life, and her disappearance left us clinging to hope, but fearing the worst. Months dragged on without a trace. The police worked tirelessly, but it felt like we were chasing shadows. Then, one day, they called with news that changed everything. My sister's body had been found frozen, preserved, inside a refrigerated truck. The discovery was horrifying. The truck driver responsible had been using his vehicle to transport and preserve the bodies of his victims. He exploited the cold to delay decomposition, complicating the investigation and giving himself more time to evade capture. This man had been operating for years, targeting vulnerable women at truck stops and rest areas. He was a predator, using his seemingly ordinary job as a cover for his monstrous crimes. My sister was not his only victim. She was one of many, caught in his web of deceit and brutality. Learning the details was unbearable. My sister had been lured by his charm and apparent kindness, only to be met with unspeakable horror. The killer's method was cold and calculated. He would offer help or a ride, gaining his victims' trust before turning on them. He then used his refrigerated truck to transport their bodies across state lines, making it difficult for law enforcement to connect the dots. The day they arrested him was a bittersweet victory. Seeing him in handcuffs, facing justice, brought some relief, but it couldn't bring my sister back. The trial was a grueling process, filled with gruesome details that haunted me. The testimonies of other victims' families were heart-wrenching. We were united in our grief and anger, seeking justice for those we had lost. The killer showed no remorse, but the evidence was overwhelming. He was convicted on multiple counts of murder and sentenced to life without parole. It was a small comfort to know he would never hurt anyone again, but the pain of losing my sister remained. I was on a long-haul journey, driving through the night on an endless stretch of highway. The hum of the engine and the rhythmic thump of the tires created a hypnotic rhythm, lulling me into a trance-like state. Hours passed in a blur, and suddenly, I snapped back to reality. Jolted by the blaring horn of an oncoming truck, I swerved just in time, narrowly avoiding a collision. My heart pounded as I realized I had no memory of the last few hours or how I had traveled such a distance without being aware. Shaken, I pulled into a dimly lit rest stop to gather my thoughts. Checking my logbook, I confirmed that I had covered a remarkable distance in an impossibly short time. My watch showed hours missing, deepening the mystery. As I sat there, piecing together the events, another trucker approached. They noticed my pale complexion and shared a chilling tale of losing time on the same stretch of road. Apparently, this highway was notorious for causing bizarre episodes of lost time. Determined to unravel the mystery, I continued my journey, taking every precaution to stay alert. I blasted loud music, kept the windows open for fresh air, and took frequent breaks. Despite my efforts, an eerie sense of disorientation lingered, as if the road itself held a supernatural power. Later that night, strange lights appeared in my rearview mirror, darting and weaving. Panic set in as the lights vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving me questioning my own senses. When I finally reached my destination, the experience haunted me. The mystery of the lost time and the eerie lights remained unsolved, a reminder of the strange and unexplained phenomena lurking on the open road. Sharing my story with fellow drivers, I discovered I wasn't alone. Tales of that highway's eerie power continued to circulate, leaving us all to wonder what truly happens during those lost hours. My mother was the heart of our family, a beacon of warmth and kindness. When she disappeared one cold night, the dread that settled over us was unbearable. We searched everywhere, but as days turned into weeks, our hope began to fade. Then, the phone call came. The police had found her body in a desolate stretch of highway, concealed in a remote area off the interstate. She had been strangled, the life cruelly snatched away by a monster who used the anonymity of the roads to his advantage. The truck driver responsible was known as the Interstate Strangler. His method was horrifyingly systematic. He would lure women traveling alone with offers of help or a ride, then use his truck as a mobile killing chamber. The refrigerated compartments of his truck provided a chilling method to preserve his victims, complicating the investigation and giving him more time to evade capture. The police pieced together his pattern through painstaking work. He had been on the run for years, moving from state to state, his truck filled with hidden horrors. The sheer scale of his crimes was revealed only after he was finally caught, and the details of his spree were horrifying. During the trial, the courtroom was charged with tension. The prosecution laid out a chilling account of how he operated, detailing his method of targeting and killing his victims. Each revelation was more disturbing than the last, painting a grim picture of the terror he inflicted. When it was his turn to speak, his cold, indifferent demeanor was shocking. Asked about his actions, he responded, "I didn't do anything wrong. They trusted me, and that was their mistake. I did what I needed to survive." His lack of remorse was a slap in the face to the families who had been shattered by his actions. He was convicted of multiple murders and sentenced to life without parole. The verdict was a small measure of justice, but it did little to mend the gaping wound left by his crimes. The trial was a harsh reminder of the evil that can lurk in the most unexpected places. I've been a long-haul truck driver for years, used to the solitude of the open road. One night, I was hauling a load through a desolate stretch of highway, miles from the nearest town. The only company I had was the hum of the engine and the occasional crackle of the CB radio. As midnight approached, a dense fog rolled in, reducing visibility to almost nothing. The road was eerily quiet, and an unsettling feeling crept over me. I tried to shake it off, focusing on the journey ahead. Suddenly, I saw a figure standing on the shoulder, barely visible in the fog. I slowed down, thinking it might be someone in need, but as I got closer, the figure vanished into thin air. Confused, I continued driving, trying to dismiss it as a trick of the light. A few miles later, I felt a strange chill inside the cab, as if the temperature had dropped. The radio flickered, static filling the silence. I glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. There, in the back seat, was a shadowy figure watching me. Heart pounding, I swerved, nearly losing control. When I looked again, the figure was gone. My mind raced as I tried to make sense of what I'd seen. Was I overtired, or was something more sinister at play? I decided to pull over at the next truck stop to clear my head. As I parked, I noticed other truckers exchanging uneasy glances, whispering about strange happenings on the road. Inside the dimly lit diner, I overheard stories of a ghostly presence haunting the stretch of highway. Truckers spoke of a mysterious figure appearing in their rigs, vanishing without a trace. They called it the Phantom Hitchhiker. Some claimed it was the spirit of a trucker who had died in a crash years ago, doomed to wander the roads forever. Others said it was a warning, a sign to be careful on these treacherous paths. Despite the rational part of my mind dismissing these tales, I couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural was happening. I returned to my truck, determined to finish my route and put the night behind me. As I drove on, the fog thickened, wrapping the world in a blanket of gray. My grip tightened on the wheel, and I kept glancing at the mirror, half expecting to see the figure return. Suddenly, the fog parted, revealing a sharp bend in the road. I slammed the brakes just in time, heart racing from the near miss as I steadied the truck. The radio crackled to life, a voice whispering my name. Terrified, I sped up, desperate to leave the haunted highway behind. The whispers grew louder, filling the cab with an unearthly presence. Just when I thought I couldn't take it any longer, the fog lifted, and the road opened up before me. When I finally reached my destination, I was exhausted, but relieved to be off that cursed road. The experience left me shaken, a reminder of the mysteries that lurk in the darkness. I still drive those long, lonely highways, but I'm always on guard, wary of the shadows that hide in the fog. Whether it was a ghost or a figment of my imagination, that night taught me to respect the unknown and to be cautious on the road less traveled. I was driving my truck down a dark, deserted highway, miles from the nearest town. The night was quiet, with only the hum of the engine breaking the silence. The road stretched on, flanked by dense forests on either side. It was the kind of night where even the stars seemed to hide, leaving the world cloaked in an unsettling darkness. Suddenly, in my rearview mirror, I noticed strange lights trailing behind me. At first, I thought it was another vehicle, but the lights didn't behave normally. They hovered, darted, and weaved in erratic patterns. My heart began to race as I tried to make sense of what I was seeing. Were my eyes playing tricks on me? Determined to understand, I pulled over to the side of the road. The lights vanished, leaving me alone in the oppressive darkness. I stepped out, the cold night air prickling my skin. The silence was deafening, broken only by the distant rustling of leaves. I scanned the horizon, but saw nothing unusual. The eerie stillness was unsettling, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. Back on the road, the lights reappeared, dancing in the sky like ghostly fireflies. Panic set in, but curiosity drove me to continue. I remembered hearing stories from other truckers about phantom lights along this stretch of highway, tales I had dismissed as exaggerations. Now, faced with the inexplicable, those stories seemed all too real. As I approached a sharp curve, the lights suddenly shot upward, disappearing into the night sky. I felt a chill run down my spine. My hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles white with tension. I was left questioning everything I knew about this road and the unseen forces at play. When I reached the next truck stop, I shared my experience with fellow drivers. Many nodded knowingly, recounting similar encounters. Some believed it was a natural phenomenon, while others whispered of UFOs, and theories abounded, each more unsettling than the last.